Hey guys, happy Sunday to everybody. I'm sorry I haven't been on making videos. My work schedule has been so crazy busy, and I just am so tired at night when I get home that I just haven't wanted to make videos. And then yesterday I was kind of feeling under the weather a bit. But today I'm feeling better and wanted to make this video. This video was a request of someone on my previous video that wanted me to chat about the differences of um, painting from Reborns in comparison to how silicones are, and if, my thoughts on if Reborns are still better painted or more realistically painted versus silicones. And even though I've actually talked about this in previous videos at times, I will definitely go into a little bit more detail. And, maybe this is something I should do when I also get my new baby, to show kind of a comparison of like depth of color and different things like that. But overall, I have said this time and time again that back when silicone dolls first came out and, artists were still learning about the medium, essentially, most of the time you would see 99.9% of silicone dolls were just painted in a blushed way, meaning like there was no undertones. There may not have even been any slight veining of any kind. So when you looked at the doll, they almost looked slightly transparent because all you saw was, the silicone color that they poured the silicone in, and then pink blushed spots to highlight like cheeks and hands and legs in certain spots, like on their knees and things like that. But it wasn't very realistically painted. And that was, like I said, that was like 99.9% of the artists painted that way, I believe, because they were still learning about the medium of silicone. And so back then, years ago, when these babies first started being made, I would have said hands down, I think that Reborn dolls were painted much more in depth, way more realistic looking. And, if you compared one to the other, you would definitely think a Reborn was more living looking. But over the years, artists have learned so much about the medium, and they've come such a long way. And I think that, the problem for most collectors is that you don't get to compare and see really nicely painted with a lot of depth silicones, so you can see them side by side next to a Reborn, so you can kind of, gauge for yourself what your thoughts are on what the realism is of the painting techniques. Now, I think the important thing to say about this is that not all artists know how to paint silicone as well as some. And it's not me putting down any artist out there. So please, anybody watching this is not me bashing artists. It's the same with vinyl Reborns. You have really, really super top quality, very talented Reborn artists that just make the ultimate realism in dolls. And then you have other artists that just may not have gotten there yet. And that's just nothing towards them or saying anything bad about them. It's just different levels of talent. And it's the same with silicone dolls. And that's one of the things you have to take into consideration when you're pricing, your dolls. I mean, we know that the very high-end Reborns that are painted by the top artists that have like the most depth and realism, they're going to bring top dollar. I've seen them go for more than $4,000 from certain artists, especially if it's, a prototype. So the same can be said and should be said for silicone doll artists. They're not all created equal. They're not of all, like, just because they're a silicone artist, you can't compare them. They're like apples to oranges from artist to artist. And one of the things that I have learned from collecting from several different artists, both Reborn artists and silicone artists, is that I know the painting styles that I prefer, and that's who I tend to stick with, or I keep coming back to, which you guys obviously see little Miss Lucy Grace here, who is Janica by Claire Taylor. This artist is I would say my favorite in style of painting, hands down, and also in the quality of the silicone. So it's like the combination of the style of painting with the really wonderful, amazing type of silicone that she uses. There are lots of top artists that paint very well and with depth, but I think Claire Taylor has by far gotten the techniques down to layer and give that depth of like veins pumping through their veins. You know, the blotchiness, the slight unevenness of a newborn baby, but without overdoing it. They're not too red. Like, it's hard to explain in words if you have not seen one in person, which is why I always tell people go to a doll show. If you can see some top artists work there, I highly recommend it, because until you see it in person, the details just don't come across as well through video and through pictures. It just doesn't happen that way. A lot of it tends to be a lighting issue. For me, the biggest problem I have is with lighting in my nursery, that, you know, if it's gloomy, I have my shade up, but really honestly there's still a lot of artificial light. So really are her details, as you're seeing them, and this is close up, this is extremely close up, that you're seeing her face and her painting, and is it really truly what I would see in person? It's close, but not exactly. So I think that some of that is lost when it's translated through video. And I know we, you know, collectors who make videos and take pictures and share them, we want you guys to see, you know, what we see in person, but it's frustrating because it's very hard to get that to come across in video and in pictures and stuff like that. But as you see, I'm going to use obviously Miss Lucy Grace here for an example of the amazing depth of color that Claire is able to achieve. And, you know, it doesn't come across as well as it would if you see her in person, obviously. But, you know, the true test really of coloring and painting and how lifelike it is has to do with, you know, the talent level of that artist. And with Claire Taylor, you can get very, very close right up to the silicone. It's not going to look like painted medium, if you know what I mean. So looking at it extreme close-up, you're not going to see like weirdness. Like her skin really truly looks like skin. And comparing, like, if you look at my skin tones next to her skin tones, they're very similar. You see the changes in the tones of my skin with like the veining and the yellowy. You're picking up all sorts of weird different colors. And she has those. So looking at my hand next to her face, if you look at the type of coloring to the two, they are very, very similar. And how Claire manages to get that layered depth effect on her dolls and her painting is beyond me. I don't know how she does it. It truly baffles me. But when I sit here and I compare like my skin tone to hers, like that's absolutely amazing to me. And I have pointed out in different videos, different places of like veining and subtle little nuances to the way she's painted on her hands or on her legs, and things that I notice on my own skin, I see with this baby painted, which blows my mind. So for me to answer the question is you know, straightforward as possible, are silicone dolls painted as realistically as Reborn dolls? The answer to me, to give you, is yes. But only by certain artists can I say that. Not all artists can achieve this type of depth. This is why Claire Taylor's silicone dolls have like literally skyrocketed on the market. People want them, people need them, people are paying so much money for them and waiting months and months to get them, because I believe, and this is just my own opinion, I don't believe there's any other artist that can paint silicone as well as Claire can. I think there are some that come close. Some very talented, there's so many talented artists out there, but I will tell you that hands down my favorite, and for durability as well, is going to be Claire Taylor. And it's not because she does me any favors that I say these things, guys. It really is truly my opinion after many, 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 many moons of collecting both silicone dolls, Reborn dolls. So I love to compare, like, how in depth is the painting. When I do get this new Reborn, I'm going to compare. I want to see the differences. And each time I've ever had a Reborn and had silicones in my collection, you know, I've had great silicones, and then there's some that I'm like, oh, they're beautiful and people couldn't believe it, but I wasn't really thrilled with it because of the painting or the silicone quality in comparison to a Reborn. And that really is, you know, That's the top standard. If you get a high-end, beautifully reborn vinyl reborn to compare, and you have a silicone doll that looks very similarly or even may even outdo the realness and liveliness and, you know, the depth, then you've done well. Then I think that, you know, if I can look at them and you can't tell which one is the silicone or which one is the reborn because the paint work is just so amazing on both, then, you know, I've achieved my goal. You know, I want them to be very, very alive. I want them to look like they have blood pumping through their veins. And, you know, the one perk of having a silicone is that when you pick them up and you feel them, they move like a living baby versus a reborn is more stiff. So that's also why I've kind of leaned towards having more silicones in my collection. But I think that both are painted beautifully. I think both mediums are amazing. But hands down, if you get from the right artist, you'll get a silicone doll painted just as realistically or even more than a reborn vinyl doll. So that's my take on it, guys. I know it's a little bit wordy, but I like to kind of explain why I feel the way I do. And, you know, I've done details videos of Lucy. I usually do details videos. If you go far enough back in my videos, almost every doll I've had, I've done a details video on. So you can kind of see the different dolls that have come through my nursery and sharing their skin tones and things like that. And some I've loved more than others. Some I've loved because I thought the face was cuter, but overall, the whole package, I would say that there's only 2 dolls that I would say like checked all the boxes. One being Lucy, and the other one was Maddie. Is it Maddie? No, I lie. Maddie was the Princess kit. The Princess by Claire Taylor. See, I forget the names of my dolls that I've had in my nursery. But, you know, my favorites have always been hands down Claire Taylor babies, just because the depth of painting and they just look alive to me. Whether you're up close or not, and that's the true test. Like when you get a silicone doll, some of them out there, you get them up close and you don't even want to video them or take pictures of them up close, and that will tell you that they're just not painted as well, or they're just not as realistic. But when you look up close, and, you know, even with an open-eyed baby is also the true test. They usually don't look alive. The eye sockets aren't smooth, or the eyelashes aren't right, or there's a gap, or it just doesn't look right to me. It just looks not perfect like a living baby would. That's why finding the right open-eyed baby is also really important to me, because the eyes are the first thing you focus on, and if they don't look alive, like they're really alive, other than they don't blink, then it's a no-go for me. And this baby looks like she truly is just staring into my eyes, waiting to coo or say something or make a noise with her little puckered up little mouth. I just love her. And that's why I'm so attached to her, because she really does pass the the true real live test of when someone sees her in person and up close and personal. That means everything to me. And when I take her out into daylight, she looks just as alive, which is also very, very important to me. But yes, silicone dolls certainly have come a long, long way. Back in the day, I wouldn't have said this, but now I can safely 100% say they're painted by the right person, by the right artist. They're painted just as realistically as a vinyl reborn is. So, hope that answers your question. Hope that makes sense, guys. And like I said, this isn't me, like, you know, putting down any artists. I just know that they're just, you know, like, in everything in the world, everybody has different talent levels and are better at some things and not. So, you know, it really does depend on the artist, just like with reborn dolls, same with silicone. You just have to do your homework and find the one that, you know, speaks to you, I suppose. But there's little Miss Lucy. She's doing just wonderful. She's just enjoying some cuddles with Mommy, and I will do some more cuddling with her this afternoon. I just like spending some time with her. She's still swaddled, though, because it's really freaking cold here. But anyways, guys, I hope you all have a lovely Sunday, and Miss Lucy Grace and I will see you all very, very soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.